In this video, we're going to be looking at suitable test data for a given problem. So in a previous video, we were exploring this program for syntax and logic errors, a simple program that gives you three choices and asks the user to enter 1, 2 or 3, and we'll be considering this for our suitable test data. So even with this very simple program, we can identify 9 tests that we could perform. Let's just run through these tests and the different types. So the first is the situation where actually the user doesn't enter any data at all. They simply press enter, and you should always check the special case of no data being entered. Now this isn't strictly considered invalid or erroneous data, but it certainly isn't something you want the user to be able to do. The rest of the tests can be broken down into 4 types, where we're testing for erroneous data, invalid data, normal data and boundary data. And we want to make sure that you understand all 4 of these terms as they're specific to the exam and they might come up. So the first is erroneous data. This is any data of the incorrect data type. So this should be rejected by the computer system. So obviously in this example program on the screen, we're saying choice equals int input enter choice. So we're expecting them to type in an integer. Therefore, erroneous data would be any data that isn't of the data type integer. So both J and the hash symbol are characters. They should be rejected. They're considered erroneous data. So the next 3 tests, 4, 5 and 6, are testing with examples of invalid data. Now this is data of the correct data type but outside accepted validation limits. So as we can see, this program is expecting to receive an integer. Well, test number 4 is accepting the integer -6. So this is the correct data type, but the program only expects a number between 1, 2 and 3. So it should be rejected. Test 5 is looking at the number 8, which again is an integer, but is above the range, so is invalid and should be rejected. And 2.5, although it's inside the range 1 to 3, that's a real number, a floating number. It's not a whole number, so that should be rejected. So actually, you may have just spotted with that last one, because test number 6 is using 2.5 and 2.5 must be a real or a float data type, that actually you're probably better flagging this up as erroneous data, as the definition for erroneous data is data of the incorrect data type, whereas invalid data is data of the correct data type but outside the validation range. Make sure you understand the difference between those two. As you can see, tests 2 through 6 are all designed to be rejected, but they're using different types of data. Test 7 tests for what we call normal data. So this is data which should be accepted by a program without causing errors. Well, in this situation, we're supplying it the number 2. Obviously, there's 2 other valid inputs here. It could be 1 or it could be 3. So when we've only got 3 examples like this, it'd probably be best to simply test all 3. With a much larger program, let's say you could type a number between 1 and 1,000, it would be a little redundant to create 1,000 tests for all possible options. So you would pick a handful within the acceptable range to test. Finally, test 8 and 9 are special cases of normal data called boundary data. So that's data of the correct type, which should be accepted, but it's on the edge of the acceptable validation limits. So in this circumstance, it's simply 1 and 3. Let's say again, therefore, you had a program that was testing for the numbers 1 to 100. The boundary data would be 1 and it would be 100. All the other values, 2 to 99, would be considered normal data, and you could pick a small sample of those to check they're accepted. Most computer problems are significantly more complex than a simple menu. Here, for example, you can see we've got a town car park. We can see from the image that there are different charges for different amounts of hours. There are different charges for different times of the day. And we can also see the car park has official opening and close times. There's a whole host of inputs here that we would need to test. Just to name a few, let's say you could input half an hour of parking, an hour and a half of parking. Does your program handle all these situations correctly? Does it output the correct price if you do Sunday parking, evening parking past 7 p.m, parking before 9:30 a.m. and after 9:30 a.m, and trying to park during invalid opening hours? So let's just have a quick recap. Test data needs to include a range of inputs. Normal inputs are data which should be accepted by a program without causing errors. Boundary inputs are data of the correct type which is on the edge of the accepted validation boundaries. Invalid inputs is data of the correct type but outside the accepted validation checks. And erroneous inputs are data of the incorrect type which should be rejected by a computer system, and this also includes no input being given when one is expected. So the first two types here would be acceptable types of data and should be accepted by a program, and the last two should cause an error and be rejected.